What if I told you that a 29-year-old who over the span of the last 4 years has averaged 24 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists per game while knocking down 38% of his threes and managing an overall effective field goal rate of 55% was not only on the market, but nobody wanted him? That is the current reality for Zach LaVine. Due to the unfortunate circumstances of the team he has played for throughout his career, LaVine has one of the worst reputations for any player as talented as he is. He gets a lot of criticism, especially for his defensive impact. And yes, technically his defensive rating is 2 points worse than the Chicago Bulls team rating. But the reality is plenty of great offensive-minded guards are a slight negative on defense relative to their team's norm. Stephen Curry was also 2 points worse. Darius Garland, Damian Lillard, Devin Booker were 3 points worse, and Jalen Brunson was 4 points worse. You might want to argue that those guys produce more in the win column, which is true, but I'm not so sure that is necessarily a fair comparison when you consider the roster makeup LaVine has had to play with. His primary running mate at the guard spot has been DeMar DeRozan, who is a non-floor spacing shooting guard. Good luck making that work. I believe if you put LaVine on a well-constructed team, which is something we have seen very little of in his career, you will be pleasantly surprised by what happens. With Chicago recently making it clear that they are going younger and rebuilding, it is very obvious that they would like to move on from LaVine. Today, I wanted to give you guys some trade possibilities I have come up with that I think will make everyone happy. Before we dive in, please like the video as it helps me out way more than I think you guys realize. Now, let us get started. The first deal I have involves LaVine along with a future first-round pick headed to the Golden State Warriors in exchange for Andrew Wiggins, Jonathan Kuminga, and Moses Moody. For Golden State, they just lost Klay Thompson for nothing and are now trying to pick up the pieces and somehow put together a roster that can compete in the playoffs as Curry and Draymond enter their mid to late 30s. Unfortunately for Golden State, they have swung and missed on several young players in the lottery over recent years. Kuminga and Moody have been serviceable, especially Kuminga, but it is clear their ceiling with those two and Klay was a play-in exit. Without Klay, they need to make some sort of upgrade to their roster. LaVine hopefully can be a spark plug on offense to alleviate the burden on Curry and lift their team on that end. Defensively, they will have their issues, yes, but hopefully that can be shored up elsewhere in free agency. For Chicago, Wiggins has a deal that lasts just as long as LaVine's, unfortunately, but it is worth significantly less each year, so he won't be as much of a burden on their payroll. And Kuminga and Moody would join Josh Giddey, Patrick Williams, Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu, and Matas Buzelis as the potential future of the Bulls. Each of those young guys will have plenty of opportunities in 2025. I think Chicago honestly could sneak into the play-in with this roster, which is not a bad thing. It is better for a young player to play meaningful basketball than it is for them just to tank. The second deal I have involves LaVine and a future first-round pick going to the Charlotte Hornets in exchange for Davis Bertans, Grant Williams, Trey Mann, and Alexei Pokusevski. Charlotte is a weird franchise that is known to do some questionable things. I believe that this move here makes their overall team more competitive initially, and it helps them at least make the play-in, which would be considered a huge positive to their franchise. I am confident a starting lineup of LaMelo Ball, LaVine, Brandon Miller, insert forward here, and Mark Williams can finish top 10 in the East. They already have good young players. Now they need to try to actually win some games. For Chicago, here's the breakdown of every part of this deal. First, Bertans' contract is not fully guaranteed. They can either waive him, try to trade him before it becomes guaranteed, or let him play, try to let him raise his value, and then try to move him at the deadline. Either way, it is a one-year deal. Grant Williams is locked down for 3 years, but at only 25 and having as much experience as he does on good teams, they may find him valuable to their core of young players. Man and Poku, meanwhile, have been around the league for a while and have shown some flashes here and there. They're both still pretty young, so they might reach their full potential in Chicago, so it's at least worth giving them a shot. This may be a disappointing haul for the type of player LaVine is, but it is a realistic haul, and I think Chicago needs to do something. For my third deal, I have LaVine going to the LA Clippers in exchange for Norman Powell, PJ Tucker, Terrence Mann, and Bones Highland. Okay, this one might sound stupid initially. I actually typed it out, thought about it, deleted it, and then thought about it again, and then retyped it. So let's go over it. The Clippers just lost Paul George for nothing. This is a pretty devastating blow when you consider they gave up so much to get him and they accomplished so little with him. They are moving into a new arena this upcoming season, and per their own words, they need a competitive team. On paper, a combination of James Harden, Zach LaVine, and Kawhi Leonard is competitive. I don't think it is contending, but I think they need to be realistic. That ship has sailed. Meanwhile, for Chicago, you have to realize that Tucker, Mann, and Highland are all on single-year contracts. Each of them will come off the books in 2026. Highland and Mann very well may be long-term additions to the team. This year will essentially be a tryout for them. Powell, meanwhile, is a very good player who can help any win-now team. Chicago may use him in their playoff push, or they may try to move him at the upcoming deadline for picks. Either way, I think they would be very happy with this move. For my fourth deal, I have LaVine going to the Toronto Raptors in exchange for Bruce Brown, Chris Boucher, and 2 future second-round picks. Toronto may seem like a tanking team to the ill-informed, but when you look at the roster, you realize that they're actually vying for a playoff spot. Scotty Barnes is extremely talented, and they just locked him down for a long-term deal, as they did with RJ Barrett and Kelly Olynyk, alongside guys like Jakob Poeltl and Sasha Vezenkov. They have a lot of win-now talent on this team, plus they already have a cast of young guys already on the roster. They really don't have any reason to finish 12th, so they might as well shoot for the 8th seed. And adding LaVine to the point guard position gives them a great shot at doing this. Chicago, meanwhile, is really not committing to anything here. Both Brown and Boucher are on expiring deals, and them actually getting draft picks for LaVine seems impossible at this point, but I bet they can get a couple seconds from Toronto here. Look, I know this deal isn't very good, but it is realistic. There are not a lot of good deals out there. And for the final trade idea I have a pretty out of left field one, but I needed 5, so this is what we got. We have LaVine along with Lonzo Ball heading to the Phoenix Suns in exchange for Bradley Beal and Nasir Little. For Phoenix, you are finally landing a high-quality point guard who can take a lot of the creation responsibilities off of Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. Also, LaVine is making less money than Beal, so long-term it gives them a little more wiggle room financially. Ball, meanwhile, comes off the books after this season, so you would have a relief there as well. For Chicago, this may seem like a dumb move, but here is my explanation. Beal is a bad contract. There is no debating that. But he is a very good role player. His shooting ability and modest playmaking would be a benefit to this team full of young point guards who need a guy they can drive and kick out to. I know Beal had a no-trade clause, but I feel like he would accept a move to Chicago because it seems like everyone in the NBA wants to be a Bull at some point in their career, and I think they might compete for a playoff spot with this team. So why not just go play ball there, potentially raise your value as your contract gets a little shorter, become a little more enticing, then Beal can hope for another trade to actually go compete for a championship in a year or two. Little, meanwhile, is a not very good player, but he only has a single year under contract. Chicago is trying to go young and highlight their new point guards, but at the same time push for at least a play-in. This deal gets them there. So that wraps up my 5 trade ideas. I will admit it was very difficult to come up with 5 realistic moves. LaVine is a good player, but his reputation is quite foul, and most teams don't have $43 million lying around to move at this very moment. If you think there exists a move that I did not come up with, please comment it below, as I genuinely do want to hear about it. I do love reading comments. I like seeing engagement down below. I like responding to people. So please subscribe, leave comments, and we can talk. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you all next time.